This conference will now be recorded.
In today's session, we will focus on developing OData service with update entity method and delete entity method. Developing OData service with update entity method and delete entity method. Update entity method is used to update data. Update entity method is used to update the data, and delete entity method is used to delete the data here by OData service. But I can say update entity method contains mainly two parameters. One is IO data provider, another is ER entity. One of the parameter is IO data provider and another parameter is ER entity. IO data provider will accept updated record from front-end app. It can be UI5 or Fiori. IO data provider will accept updated record whichever is coming from front-end application. IO data provider will accept updated record from the front-end app. And ER entity will send output record to the front-end app. ER entity will send output record to the front-end app. Similarly, delete entity method contains something like one important parameter, that is IT key tab. IT key tab is an important parameter of delete entity method. IT key tab will accept input key field value or values from front-end app, UI5 or Fiori. IT key tab is responsible for accepting input key field values from front-end application. So for deleting the record, you can accept some key field value. Based on that, you can delete. So let us understand the step-by-step procedure. Step 1 is open your OData service project. under SAGWT code. Step 2, open data provider extension class, that is DPC extension class. Place cursor under update entity method. You have to place cursor under update entity method of EMP set. For this EMP set, based on that EMP set, we are trying to update the data. So try to use update entity method of EMP set and redefine that. Implement below code. Step 3, what we can do? We can place cursor under EMP set based delete entity method. And redefine that method. Implement below code. So we are going to write the code under update entity method and delete entity method. So let me do that. So this is our project folder. Now you can see there is DPC extension class. DPC extension class. Now you can see here there is update entity method based on EMP set. Update entity method based on EMP set. So you can place cursor here, redefine. Now we will try to write some piece of code under update entity method. So you can see update entity method. Here you can implement some piece of code, and there is one important parameter, that is IO data provider. For accepting the input, and ER entity is a returning parameter, you can send output. With respect to UI5 Fiori frontend, you can accept input by using IO data provider, and ER entity can send output to the frontend. And here under update entity method, we can implement update statement, or if you want, you can call a function module, RFC or BAPI, that's up to you. Right, so let me save this. piece of code now. First, let me take one work area. Type ZCL MPC class name you have to provide. ZCL, and then you'll get your MPC class name. If you use control space, provide ZCL and control space, then you'll get your MPC class name here. You can select that. Under that MPC class, you can see there are several options here. First, let me select ZCL MPC class, then I want to refer with table structure EMP, TSEMP. There are many things here. Table structure EMP, table type EMP, table structure user, and you can say there is table structure flight, there is table type flight. There are many things here. So I want to make use of table structure EMP here. And I want to use IO data provider. IO data provider. On top of that, you can call one method read entry data. In order to capture the data, here you can use read entry data, importing ES data into work area. So whichever record is updated in the front end, that will reach this work area. Whichever record is updated in the front end, UI5 or Fiori, so that record ultimately will reach this work area because of IO data provider parameter. Now you can use your regular ABAP statement for updating the data. Update something like Z user info. You can set first name. You can update last name, etc. Then I want to update email ID, country, salary. So I want to update all these values, but if you want to update all these values, the values which are updated in the front end that are part of work area. So why don't you pass work area values now for update statement? So you can pass work area hyphen that field name, work area hyphen that field name, work area hyphen that email ID, country, salary. But I want to update all these values based on a key field. I want to update these field values based on key field, so why don't you use where clause here? Where user ID equal to work area hyphen that user ID. So if you closely observe, we are not updating user ID. It is a key field. You cannot update that. Based on user ID, based on key field, we are trying to update the remaining field values. Based on user ID, which is a key field, we are trying to update the remaining field values. Now, after doing this, you can send your message to the front end. If you want, after updating the data, you can also send a message to the front end. So message handling, I am going to explain in one of the separate session. Don't worry now. Let me save it. Activate. And this is a code we have implemented. Let me paste that here for future reference. Now let us go to delete entity. Before that, let me explain the data flow, how it works. So this is our OData service functionality at the moment. But this OData service ultimately deals with the front-end apps, UI5 Fiori, under UI5 Fiori, I can say there will be a screen which will accept latest values here through input form. You can accept input values like all these things. Whichever values you want to update, you can accept from the front end. And you can create one update data button. So here you can accept all latest values for so and so user ID, and then ultimately we can send these values to the OData service. When user click on update data button, update entity method has to be executed. But in simple words, I can say the values whichever is coming from input form will ultimately reach work area here. The values whichever is coming from front-end app, so those values ultimately will reach work area. Because of IO data provider standard parameter here. And then what we are trying to do is we are just trying to update the data into database table for so and so fields. So this is a general data flow, how to capture the latest values, latest record from the front end. So that will help you, this diagram will help you in order to understand that. So this data flow of update entity method and implementation part. So we are taking all our updated values from front end into work area. That is the point. After that, you can use your regular ABAP coding. Now, let me go back, and I want to use delete entity method. So place cursor here under delete entity method of EMP set and redefine. Now here you can write some piece of code under delete entity method. You can see, you can write your functionality here. Implement delete statement, or you can also call function module RFC or BAPI if deleted. But the main parameter for this method is IT key tab. IT key tab is the main parameter, so that is responsible for accepting the input from the front end. Based on that IT key tab field value, we are going to delete the data. So we are capturing input key field value from front end through IT key tab. By using that, we are going to implement delete statement. So this is just the overview diagram. Now let me write some piece of code here. First let me declare work area key tab type. So whenever you are dealing with key fields, you can use /IWPEP SMGW name value pair. IWPEP SMGW name value pair. Work area key tab. Whenever you are dealing with key fields, you can use SMGW name value pair structure. Now you can use read table statement, IT key tab. IT key tab into work area key tab. Index 1. So it is going to capture user ID value coming from the front end. It will capture the user ID value whichever is coming from the front end. Now you can use a delete statement, delete from so and so table where user ID equal to work area key tab hyphen its value. So we are deleting the record from database table based on our user ID in a where clause. So it's very simple. So how this will work with respect to front end, let me just give one simple diagram. Let me activate. So first let me explain this one of the diagram here. So this is delete entity method, and this is the implementation part under OData service. But ultimately, this has to be done with respect to UI5 Fiori app. So in the front-end UI5 Fiori app, you can accept some key field input value. Input, for example, enter user ID and you can have delete data button. So through input form, you can accept user ID and then you can select delete data button to execute delete entity method. But the point here is whichever key field value is coming from front end, it will reach this work area key tab. Whichever input key field value comes from front end, that will reach work area key tab because of ID key tab parameter. Based on that, we are trying to implement our delete statement. So that is how the key field value comes from front end to OData, and in OData we are deleting the record based on that. So so let me activate this. You can go back. Now you can open service maintenance. The service is already registered. Now you can go to gateway client for testing the service. Gateway client for testing the service. So first what we'll do, we will test update entity method. So how to do that? In order to do that, first select entity set, that is EMP set in this case. You can see here under entity sets, you can select EMP set. You can select EMP set and try to get the record which you want to update. Try to get the record which you want to update here. For example, I want to update the record which is with user ID 2005. I want to update the record which is having user ID 2005. So first get that sample record here. Now there is a record with the name Ajay. Ajay@ca.com, salary, country, etc. Country US, salary 66,000. So this is the existing record now. This is the existing record. But what you need to do now is copy this XML format. Copy this XML format from HTTP response to HTTP request. Same like our previous session. Copy this XML format from HTTP response to HTTP request by selecting use as request option. So let me do that. Now we are able to get XML format here from HTTP response. It is copied to HTTP request. After doing this, now what you can do, except key field, except user ID key field value, except user ID key field value, you can update the remaining values from HTTP request. So now Ajay, I want to make it to something like Sunil. Country India, salary, I want to make it 77,000. So earlier 2005 is associated with Ajay, but now we are making it Sunil. Countries US to India, salary 66,000 to 77,000. So except user ID, you can update the remaining values here. And select put operation here. Select put operation and execute the service. So Now, if everything goes fine, you will get 204 message here. If update functionality success, then you'll get 204 message under HTTP response. This is a status code. What is the proof? You can open database table. Let me open database table and let me check whether the record is updated or not. 2005. Let me search. You can see 2005 record. Previously Ajay, now it is Sunil. Previously US, now it is India. 66,000 as a salary, now it is 77,000. So this record is updated in the database table successfully through OData service. So if you want, let me try one more. I want to update, for example, let me check what are the other values. 3001. I want to update that record. So first get that record here. So that record is existing in the database table. And these are the existing values for 3001 user ID. Now, if you want to update this record, copy HTTP response to HTTP request for XML format. So you can select use as request option. Now, XML format is copied. So, 3001 existing values Devi, I want to make it with something like Satish. Country India to US, 46,000 to 57,000. So without changing the key field, you can update the remaining values. Now, if you want to execute update entity method, use put operation. You can select put operation if you want to execute update entity method. Now, if update is success, then you'll get 204 status code under HTTP response. So updation is successful, but what is the proof? You can open database table and refresh. When you refresh, now you can see 3001. Previously, first name is Devi, now it is Satish. India to US, 46,000 to 57,000. So the values are updated. So the point here is how we are trying to do this. If you closely observe, we are using this URL and initially we are selecting get option and we are executing the service. Using get option, we are executing our service. So what we will get one sample record. That record, whichever record is matching with user ID, so that record will be displayed here along with XML format. Now what we are trying to do is we are trying to select use as request option. We are selecting use as request option in order to copy XML format from HTTP response to HTTP request. We are trying to copy XML format from HTTP response to HTTP request. After that, here you can change the values. You can update with latest values. Without changing user ID, change other values. update all these things. So you can update the values left hand side, and after updating the values, what you need to do is select put operation and then execute the service. Use put operation and then execute the service. So when you use put operation, it will automatically execute update entity method, and update statement will update the values. So this is the procedure you need to follow for testing update entity method. So when you select use as request option, what is happening? When you select use as request option, I can say HTTP response data is copied to HTTP request. It copies HTTP response to HTTP request with XML format. So after copying, we are updating the values under request, then we are using put operation to execute the service for update functionality. Right, so let me write that procedure here. Use EMP set, then try to use this URL, select get option and execute the service. So you will get record with XML format. But what you need to do, now select use as request option. Now select use as request option. Why we are using this option? To copy, this is to copy HTTP response to HTTP request. Select use as request option in order to copy HTTP response to HTTP request. In order to copy HTTP response to HTTP request. After that, change or update record values under HTTP request except user ID key field value, and select put operation, select put option and execute the service. In SE11 T code, open database table and check the data. And check whether record is updated or not. So that's the procedure we are following in order to test update entity method through gateway client. Now, let us understand how to test delete entity method. How to test delete entity? It's very simple. You can select your entity set, entity set, then what you do is provide the key field value. Let me go back. Let me open gateway client again. Open gateway client. Select entity set, that is EMP set. You can see this. And provide the key field. For example, user ID equal to something like 3001. I want to delete this record matching with user ID 3001. Use delete option. You can select directly delete option and execute the service. If the delete operation is success, then you'll get 204 HTTP response status code. If delete operation is success, then you'll get HTTP response with status code 204. But what is a proof? You can open database table and refresh. When you refresh, you can see now one record is missing, that is matching with user ID 3001, so that record is not available now. Now say for example, I want to delete 5600 record. 5600, that's the user ID. I'm selecting delete option, execute the service. Now you'll get again 204 HTTP response. So for confirmation, open database table and refresh here. You can see 5600 record is missing in this table. So that record is deleted via OData service. So for deleting the record, what we are trying to do is we are using this type of URL. And we are selecting delete option and executing the service. So that's a simple procedure you can follow. Testing delete entity method. Okay, now what you're trying to do, you're trying to use this type of URL, then select delete option and execute the service. Select delete option and then execute the service. And if possible, open SE11T code, check whether record is deleted or not from Z user info table. That's the table we have used. That is for confirmation. Now, let me write some of the important points here. When you are using get option can execute get entity method. Get option can execute get entity set method also depending upon the URL. Get option executes get entity method if you pass the key field value. Get option can execute get entity set method if you are using a filter value. And post option, which we have used in the last session, will execute create entity method. And put option executes update entity method. And delete option option executes delete entity method. So, based on the option which you choose, accordingly the respective method will be executed here. And not only that, so these are some of the important points you need to remember. So this is just like execution behavior. Not only that, there will be HTTP status codes. HTTP status codes. There are status codes like HTTP status code with 1XX. 1XX, these are informational messages. 1XX, that means 100, 101, 102, 103, etc. So those are informational messages. HTTP status code with 2XX, that means 200, 201, 202, 203, 204, etc. These are generally success messages. HTTP status code 3XX, these are generally redirectional messages. And HTTP status code 4XX, these are client side error messages. Client side error messages. HTTP status code 5XX, these are server side error messages. So these are the standard status codes. Whichever service runs based on HTTP protocol, whichever service runs based on HTTP protocol will internally follow this particular HTTP status codes. 1XX informational messages, 2XX success messages, 3XX redirectional messages, 4XX client side error messages, 5XX server side error messages. So for more information on these status codes, you can refer below website for more information on HTTP status code. So there are many status codes. In real time, you may get error or you may get a success, but what is the indication of that status code? That you need to know it from this URL. So there is a website. In real time, when you're developing the apps, you may get any status code. So to understand what is the importance of that status code, you can open this site. Let me open that here. HTTP status codes. I'll give that final URL. You can see this one. This is status codes. Now you'll get all different status codes here. This is a site you can directly open to understand the importance of each status code. What is the importance of status code 100, 101, 102? What is the importance of status code 200, 201, 203, 204, etc.? So you'll get more detailed information in this particular website here. You can see, for example, you can see server error 5XX, 500 internal server error, 501 not implemented, 502 back gateway, 503 service unavailable, 504 gateway timeout. So these are all server side related error messages. If there is any problem in executing your service with respect to the server, so those type of server-side messages, we call it as 5XX messages. It can be 500, 501, 502, 503, 504, etc., etc. Similarly, you can see here 4XX. 4XX, these are client-side error messages here. 400, bad request. 401, unauthorized. 402, payment required. 403, forbidden. 404, not found. 405, method not allowed. And you can see 408, request timeout. 407, authentication required. So these are all client-side error messages here. 4XX. Similarly, you can see 2XX. Let me go to that. 2XX, that is successful messages here. 200, 201, 202, 203, 204, etc. You can see that. So if you want to know each and every status code related detailed information, then this website will be useful, especially when you are doing services under real time. Please refer this. This site is mainly to indicate what is the status code and what is the importance of that status code and what it indicates. And accordingly, you can rectify the problem if there is any error message. So this is very important. So these HTTP status codes are common for any service or any application which runs on HTTP protocol. Any service or any application which runs on HTTP protocol, so those applications and those services can expect these status codes. So I'll stop here. When you find free time, just try to refer this link and try to understand the message description and message code, message description and the solution if there is any error. So that you'll get it from this website.